Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
What, friends, those of you who have been married some longer time or whatever, what is the secret to a long-term relationship? Howard, you can answer if you want. I wasn't going to call on you, but go for it. Distance! Incredible. Distance that you go together in the relationship, or spend a lot of time apart? Okay.
You always say yes, dear, yes, dear.
What other great relationship secrets do we have from friends, or even, what do you know about relationship? What makes a relationship succeed in particular? Yes, Josh.
Well, there's a line in one of my favorite musicals, Rent, where it says there, you need somebody whose baggage goes with mine.
Oh.
So it's they don't have to be the same history, but at least a compatibility that's not based necessarily on the same experiences, but at least ones that parallel each other close enough so that you can understand each other.
Love that. I don't have a good Torah analogy or lineup for that, but I love it. Thank you, Josh. Other great relationship secrets here.
I would say
Trust. Trust is important. There's one that we haven't heard yet, which is interesting to me. Communication. Yes, Hollis, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say having a really good sense of humor about
Sense of
yours and
humor.
your partner's foibles.
That's important too. Yes, David, and then Simcha, yeah.
Mutual respect.
Respect, yeah.
Prioritization.
Prioritization. Those are good too. All right. Lots of great relationship advice here in the room, but the one I'm going to focus on was communication. Thank you, Jeff. I was waiting for that answer in particular because we have a very interesting story about communication in this week's Torah portion. Anybody heard of the Tower of Babel? Yeah. So what's the story? Somebody want to recap it for me?
I never understood it.
You never I see what you did there, Josh. Good one. Josh Sachs, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be here all Shabbat. Yeah. Go ahead, David. Give us a quick synopsis.
So they started building a huge tower to the flood Allah, and they were not able to understand each other.
Okay, so a whole bunch of people decide we're going to build a tower of sorts. We're going to reach all the way up to the very face of God. And then God thwarts this effort by what means? Changing languages. Thank you. And so we get this amazing, sort of folktale kind of genesis of where different languages come from, why it is that different human beings have different languages, was that God actually wanted to thwart them in their communicating with one another. Somehow this, as an idea, was such an affront that the trick was to make different languages, and to this day, those different languages are part of our human story. What it means to be human is we have different languages. Now, the Tower of Babel is kind of a funny story to think about for a couple of contemporary reasons. One, spaceflight. We've made it all the way to the top of the sky at this point as human beings. But the second one that's kind of intriguing to me are all of the sort of advances in the technology of translation. That I actually have an app where I can speak Hebrew to it in my phone, and even with my kacha ivrit shani medaber, my Hebrew that is so, todah, Osnat's vote of approval, it'll translate it live. I hit a button and it'll just translate it live on the fly. This came up, and it came in handy actually some weeks ago. I remember there was a crew taking down a tree in my neighborhood, and I wanted to see if they had any extra wood that I could take. and they didn't speak any English. And so I whipped out my phone and I had it translate for them. And they were, yeah, sure. They were able to, and then they spoke into it again. And it said, yeah, we got all that you want. We're just hauling the stuff off, so take whatever you want. You want us to stack it in your driveway. All with my smartphone. Now, what's interesting about the Tower of Babel is that this idea of different languages gets presented to us as a disadvantage. God thwarting us, God doing something to us. That, we could have all spoken the same language and everything would have been great, and then we would have gotten to, I don't know, the edge of space thousands of years earlier or something. I don't know. But what gets erased if suddenly we do all speak the same language? What if your smartphone can actually translate live for you, and there suddenly isn't utility to learning a foreign language? What do you lose? Yeah, go ahead, Avi.
The parts of like people's cultures, because there's a lot of culture that comes from language, and also for those who learning the foreign languages and won't be able to do that anymore.
Avi points out correctly, I think, that foreign languages come with culture. They come with a way of interpreting and interacting with and seeing the world. The only other language I really get close to speaking is Hebrew, so I'll use that as an example. I remember a point in time at which I knew all of the Hebrew words, but I was still using it like English. I was using the language, using the exact words like I would use the English language. And I mean that in terms of what was socially appropriate to ask for something in the store. Pardon me, sir, can you please get me X or Y or whatever? And I see Osnat chuckling because if I said that in Hebrew, they would look at me like I was a space alien. They understood what's that? Yeah, they don't use the language that way. Can you give me this thing? And it's not considered rude. It's not considered impolite. In fact, the idea is that you're being direct. This whole English construct around, dancing around the thing somehow it's bizarre if one is from a cultural standpoint that is much more direct in how it communicates. It's like, why don't you say what's actually on your mind? And I think that's an amazing thing to sit with actually against the backdrop of both the Tower of Babel as a reality, but also on the cusp of changes in technology that may make learning foreign languages, different than it used to. This idea that I can simulcast translate anything I want to. I'm curious I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. I'm curious as to what language education will look like for them. What will be considered fair and not fair? What will be considered cheating? What might be gained? And truly, what might be lost in this process of translating? I would say here, translation is an art. It's not a science. Because part of what's so exacting and tricky about it is not just translating word for word mechanically in a straightforward way, but the entire range of semantic networks of what is evoked by each and every word and the way that they interact and weave with one another, not to get deep into semiotics. You don't get that through the mechanical act of translation. And so I actually want to suggest here that the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Blessed Holy One, did us a favor. That we wouldn't have the plurality and the richness of being able to understand and see the world in so many different ways if we didn't speak other languages. If we all spoke the same exact dialect of whatever it is, English, it becomes a narrowing thing in terms of how many possibilities there are around which you can see the world. Can it thwart you if you are looking for common purpose? Yes, totally. If you have 12 different languages or whatever, that's very hard to organize people and to get behind that. But I do want to suggest that baked into that idea that there might be different languages comes an idea that we can see the world in profoundly and radically different ways. So I want to suggest that in a time in which we struggle with certain kinds of monolith, of purpose, of instruction, of people should think the way I do, the right way, whatever, the idea of being able to see something from someone else's eyes, I think, is a beautiful and invaluable thing. And so against the backdrop of the world we live in right now, I am particularly delighted by the prospect of having different languages and different ways of seeing and viewing and interacting with the world. And it reminds me I should go brush up on my Hebrew. וכדאי לי לדבר עברית יותר עם אסנת.
Any language.
אחלה.
גם עברית.
Any language, also Hebrew. It's the other one I know. It like when I learned Hebrew, it ate my high school Spanish. What can I say? Now I try and think in Spanish, and it comes out as Hebrew, but that's a story for another time. So I just want to use the Tower of Babel as a piece of encouragement. See the world through other eyes, however and wherever and whenever you can. It's not just a curse, it's also a blessing. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. And